Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Mr. Ty, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you step by step how to tear apart your GoPro Hero 6 and turn it into a BetaFPV Gopro Lite. The cool thing about this is it comes with a custom PDB board, which allows you to run the GoPro directly off of battery power. It'll take anywhere from 2 to 4S. That is 8 to 20 volts. It also allows you to stop and start recording directly off of your flight controller. The cool thing about this is it's modular and it still has structural integrity. Now it is going to weigh slightly more than some other designs out there, but it will come out to under 30 grams and I'll weigh it at the end when I'm all done. One other great feature about this is it will allow you to take a full-size GoPro Hero 5, 6, or 7 ND filter right over top of the GoPro. It also has a built-in LED so you can see if it's recording or not recording, and 2 buttons if you don't want to run all the controls off of your flight controller. This product only costs $20, and if you have a 3D printer, then you can buy just the PDB for $8. The last thing about this that is so fantastic is that there is no soldering required. It is 100% plug and play. Well, except for the fact that you have to tear apart the GoPro Hero 6. So that being said, guys, let's just go ahead and get right into the video.
So this video is pretty long, so feel free to skip around, and there's a table of contents in the description below.
So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and pair your GoPro to your phone, update it, and get it all set up. The reason why is once you remove the back screen, you can't pair it to anything except for what it's already paired to. If you forget this step, you're going to have to put your GoPro all back together just so you can change the settings. To do this, go ahead and turn the GoPro on. Go ahead and go through all the prompts. Then, once you made it through all the prompts, go ahead and turn on your GoPro app. Once the GoPro app is on, go ahead and add a device, and then click Ready on the GoPro. Then click Next. And if you would like, you can rename your device. Normally with my GoPros, I rename it to my phone number in case someone finds it. But in this case, since no one's going to be able to check it since it doesn't have a back screen and you can't really pair it once we take it apart, I'm just going to leave the name as is. One thing I forgot to mention, make sure the SD card is already inserted before you start doing all this. That way, if there is any updates, the GoPro can go ahead and update. However, I've already gone ahead and updated this GoPro, but it's pretty straightforward and a screen would pop up telling you to update your GoPro. The only thing you need to keep in mind is the battery on your phone and the GoPro must be at 20% or higher. Now that you're connected, you can go ahead and set up the settings you would like to go ahead and set up. However, I'm just going to go ahead and tear it apart and do all the settings later now that we got it all set up. The first thing you're going to want to do is power off the GoPro. Remove the battery and SD card. Then remove the front lens. You can do this by grabbing it firmly, pull it away from the GoPro, and twist. Should pop right off. After you do that, go ahead and remove the screen protector from the front. Now you're going to need to go ahead and pry this top part of the GoPro off the GoPro. The best way to do this is to hit it with some heat. If you have a hot air gun, that would work great. Just make sure you don't get the GoPro too hot, that way you don't damage it. However, I don't have one, so I'm going to use a hairdryer. About 40 seconds should be long enough. You want it warm, but not so hot that you can't touch it. Then go ahead and take a piece of plastic, like a prop or any kind of phone prying tools you have, and stick it right in that little hole right there and start to pry this front part off the GoPro. Take your time and go slow. All right, well that took me about an hour. This was a refurbished GoPro and I think they just put way too much glue on it. I ended up ripping the entire thing apart even though I heated it up with the hairdryer. But that's okay. The important part is that we didn't scratch the lens and that all the screws are uncovered. So now that all these screws are uncovered, go ahead and take a T3 bit, which is the star pattern, the 6-sided star, and go ahead and take out all 6 of these screws. Once you removed all the screws, carefully pull the front plate here away from the GoPro. Be careful, however, because it is connected by several ribbon cables. Once you remove it, go ahead and take a plastic tool and pop off these ribbon cables. Careful, try not to damage them. Once you've removed all the ribbon cables, go ahead and peel up this black tape right here. And carefully lift this little piece of metal right here. Pop this last ribbon cable here. Make sure you unhook the screen as well. That's this little guy right here. Then go ahead and get a small Phillips and remove the 4 screws on the outside of the board here and the 2 screws on the USB board. Then once you remove that, you can remove the last screw, which is hidden right down in here. After you've done that, go ahead and remove the lens ribbon cable. Be very careful with this one since we're going to have to reuse it.
What we do here is go back.
And then you should be able to very carefully pull out the main board. Like so. Finally, there's one last screw hidden right here behind this ribbon cable. Once you remove that, the lens should come out. Like so. And that's going to be it for tearing apart the GoPro. The only parts out of there that we're going to need are these 2 guys right here. Now that you have the main board and the lens, this is pretty much all you need. As you can see, these 2 components come out to 16.7 grams. Now, if you were going to run this without the kit that I'm about to show you how to put together, you are going to need to save the USB and figure out some other way to power this thing. However, since we're using this little kit with the PDB included, we're not going to need anything but these 2 pieces. All the pieces in this kit come out just shy of 12 grams. Okay, so it's actually the next day, and I've already put this thing together and tested it out. I was going back through the footage, and I really fumbled around with it, and honestly, this thing is kind of difficult and unintuitive to put together, especially since they give you a lot of extra screws. However, I have gone through, read all the instructions online about it, and through me troubleshooting putting it together, I have figured out the best way to put it together. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together now for you guys in one take. So the first thing you want to do is take your main board here and go ahead and reattach the lens module. Alright, the reason why you want to attach the lens module before you attach this little guy is because this little guy is kind of finicky and likes to pop off when you mess around with the board too much. Next, you want to go ahead and attach this little PDB. Now this is actually going to attach on where the ribbon cables used to connect to the board. It's going to get power from here, as well as it's going to be able to turn on and on the GoPro from the little ribbon cable slot up here. If you look at the back of the board, you can see the reverse side of the ribbon cable is actually on the back side of this little PDB. Go ahead, line up one of them, make sure you have it straight. You should hear it click, and then click the other one. All right, clicked into place right there. Now you want to go ahead and slide these plastic pieces into place. It's easier to put these in after you've already clicked this board on, because the tension from the board will help keep these from falling out. This little guy goes with the notch pointing toward the lens module. Or no, I'm sorry, this notch goes pointing away from the lens module, like so. Pops right into there, like that. And if it gets misaligned, you can just take a needle or something and poke it in there and realign it. Then go ahead and take the other little plastic insert spacer, and it's going to go right here at the bottom. You can tell because there's a little cutout or like a little lip there that matches this little piece of plastic. And it's just going to slide right in there and line up with that first hole there. Now we're going to go ahead and put this guy into the main body of the case. You want to start with the lens module, and you want to get the part with the ribbon cable through the hole first. That way you minimize your chances of damaging that ribbon cable. The hole is slightly smaller than the lens module, so you do have to stretch it just a little bit. I recommend getting, like I said, the cable through first, then get the corner on the left through, and then once you get that, like so, you can stretch it a little bit and it should pop right in like so. Be careful not to squeeze the board too much, because you will pop that PDB off the back. However, if you do, once you get in the case, you can easily click it back in, but you just want to make sure that it's lined up, so just try to be careful when you're putting it in there. Next, you want to gently push in all the corners until the whole thing just kind of clicks in place like so. Now, as you noticed, I already have the screws on this little guy. That's because they're kind of a pain to get threaded, and I have seen some tutorials where they've put this underneath the lens module, and that's not correct. This actually goes on top of the lens module, but it's best to put this on at the very end. So next, we're going to go ahead and grab some of these screws. Now, they actually added 4 screws that are new that weren't in the original kit. And that's these guys with the bigger head here. Now, you can do everything you need with these little screws. However, I'm going to use the bigger ones because I feel that since they have a flat head, they hold the board better. And in a crash or an impact, I feel that the displacement of how much surface area you have on this head will be less likely to damage the board as opposed to the real little screws. So the first one of these screws you want to put in the top left corner here. And you are screwing into TPU, so once it gets a little snug, go ahead and stop so you don't strip out or widen that hole any more than it has to be. The second one is going to go right here underneath the lens module. Okay, and the next one's going to go right here. Now, I actually recommend using one of these little screws for that hole. Since it's so close to this component right here, the head of the bigger screw actually hits that component. So go ahead, screw this little guy right in. And now, since we do have extra screws, I'm going to go ahead and take another one of these really little screws and put it right in that hole there. Now, this screw is unnecessary. However, since I am using the screw with the smaller head, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 in because you can. There is a hole in the TPU here, even though the manual doesn't state that you need to do that. So I just went ahead and put it in there. Now, this one on the far left is mandatory because it holds this little plastic spacer in place. And you're going to want to leave this one open because one of the long black screws is actually going to go through there at the end. So that is all the screws that you're going to put in on the inside right here. Next, we're going to go ahead and put the carbon fiber faceplate on. Now, when you go ahead and put this faceplate on, make sure that you pull the lens module forward slightly so the standoff connected to the main board can slide through the hole right here on the carbon fiber. Like so. Once you do that, go ahead and take your black screws and put them in all 4 holes around the outside of the case. You'll find one right here at the bottom, bottom right, bottom left, and top left. When you put it in the one on the bottom, make sure you push the TPU in so it screws directly into the TPU because it likes to flare out slightly and then you won't be screwing it in correctly. After you get all the black screws in, we can go ahead and put this little piece of TPU on. I've already started these screws and left them in there because they're kind of a pain. The best way to put these screws in is to get them started on a flat surface and then go ahead and try to put it on the lens. You want to go ahead and actually screw them down a little ways as well, because once you go to screw it in, it's not actually going to grab until the very back. And if you are trying to screw it in close to the lens module, you are having a higher chance of the screwdriver slipping off and scratching your lens. So I do recommend going ahead and driving those down at least 2/3 of the way. Alright, now this next part is not in the instructions, however I found that it makes it hold to the camera a little better. It also spaces it out a little better, I'll show you in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these screws with the bigger head on it right here, and I'm actually going to screw it into this TPU from the bottom. Again, this is not in the instructions, however I do believe that this makes it hold better. You want to screw it until the point just barely sticks out of the top of the TPU. I did just a little too far, like that. Now the reason why you want to do that is when you go to put it on the lens module, there actually requires no screw on the bottom. And if you screw a screw in from the top going straight down, it's essentially doing absolutely nothing. But by doing it this way, you can go ahead, hook that screw underneath like so. And I'm actually going to make that just a turn tighter. You want that just to be slightly snug. And it's going to help hold this piece of plastic firmly to that lens. A little too far. Let's try that. There we go, like so. Now go ahead and take the longer screws and insert them into those mandible standoffs on the PDB, or not the main board, like so, and push them all the way down flush. Once you do that, go ahead and stretch the TPU over the bottom ring of the lens until it's flush with the flat part right there, like so. After you do that, I recommend taking your thumb, placing it directly on the lens so you don't chance damaging it, and finish screwing that screw in the rest of the way. You want to screw it until the rubber and metal from the lens comes flush with the PDB standoff, but you don't want to tighten it too tight, just until you start to compress the TPU barely, maybe about 2 turns past flush. Or maybe even just a half turn. Yeah, like so. Now, as you can see, this screw here at the bottom gives it just the right amount of clearance. The standoffs stick up past this carbon fiber plate ever so slightly, and that screw head giving just a little bit of space actually helps hold the lens a lot more steady than if the screw wasn't there. Now at the very end, as you can see, we have 2 screws left over. which, like I said, you had 4 extra screws in this, and we used one right here and one right here. However, the last thing we have to do is go ahead and put this little protective cover over the back of the lens module. The best way to do this is to take the notch, lay it over the ribbon cable first, that way you're not trying to stretch it over the ribbon cable and possibly damage it, and then push up slightly and push it right down like so. And try to get it snug with the bottom of the TPU. And that is it. Now if you want to, you can go ahead and put this guy on as well, which is going to go ahead and give your lens a little bit of extra protection, as well as if you have a stick-on ND filter, like a camera butter, you can actually stick it right to this TPU, or you can get one of the covers that go over top of a GoPro Hero 7 lens, not like this one. See, this is an ND filter that's replaceable. You want one that goes over the pre-existing lens, and if you have those, they'll actually slide right over the top of this TPU. However, I would recommend going online and buying these. These are for the Mavic Mini Zoom, and you end up getting, where did it go? There it is, a set of ND filters. Now there is an ND4, 8, 16, and 32, as well as there is a UV filter, and there's one other in here that I'm not quite sure. I'll put a link to this in the description below if you'd like to order some yourself. However, I recommend these over these big honking ones because, as you can see, the weight is quite a bit less. That's almost 10 grams just for this ND filter. And these come out to 1.5 grams. Now, this does not fit snugly, so what you're going to have to do is 3D print a little ring to take up the excess space. Or you could even, if you really wanted to, take a hot glue gun, put a bead of hot glue around here, and while it is still slightly warm, you can stick one of these on and then unscrew it. The threads should hold to the hot glue, and then you'll be able to switch these out depending on which ND filter you need. Now the all-up weight on this little guy, now that we're all done with it, comes out just shy of 27 grams, and if you were to run this guy on there, you're looking at 28.3, and I'll go ahead and take this lighter ND filter that I have. If you were to, like, I don't have the correct one, but just as an ideal, if you wanted to put one of these ND filters on there, it would come out to just shy of 34 grams. Now, with this little guy on there and just a little bit of TPU, this is too much TPU, but I'll put this on anyways. You can get it sub 30 grams with an ND filter, and that's what I plan on doing. Alrighty guys, well that was my build guide for the BetaFPV GoPro Hero Lite. Now, if you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps out the channel and I definitely appreciate it. Also, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on those bell icons so you get notified with all my upcoming videos. The next one that I have coming out is going to be an in-depth tutorial on how to set this up on Betaflight, as well as set up the camera control for this little guy so you can start and stop recording off of a switch on your radio. Now that being said guys, like always, fly safe and I'll see you in the next video.